Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to this session. This session is going to be on the basics of FinTech. FinTech is one of the hottest and most exciting fields of development in the domain of businesses. It covers multiple realms. A lot of innovation is happening, a lot of companies are coming up, a lot of opportunities are coming up in this domain. Hence, let's take a look at what is the basics of FinTech. In this session, we look at the basics of FinTech. What does it mean? What are the technologies does it involve? What are the changes it is causing? What are some of the applications? And how others are looking at applying FinTech to their own businesses. Let me switch over to my desktop. My name is Dr. Sudhendar Hanumantharao. I am the Dean, Faculty of Management and Commerce at Manipal University in Jaipur. As mentioned earlier, this session is going to be on the basics of FinTech. This is being broadcast on Swayam Prabha channel 16. So let's take a look at what is FinTech. There have been so many definitions, a lot of research is going on and a lot of definitions exist. Different people, different researchers, different organizations have defined it slightly differently. So I have amalgamated from multiple sources and come up with a common definition. In short, it stands for financial technology. It covers two domains, two realms, finance and technology, and a combination which is disrupting and disruptively affecting both the fields, finance and technology. So after looking at 200 such papers, I think this could be a general definition that we could all use. FinTech is a new financial industry. It's not just technology, it's not just finance, it's a financial industry, it's not a product that applies technology to improve financial activities. As we know, financial activities have been going back into prehistory, but technology affecting that is enabling us to look at finance in a completely different way and do our financial activities in different manner. Another definition there is a magazine called FinTech Weekly that describes FinTech as it is describing a business that aims at providing financial services by making use of software and modern technology. Software also is technology, so finance is being profoundly changed by application of technology, and hence the term FinTech. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look further. Second, what we call as FinTech, that is technology in finance, has not necessarily a new phenomenon. Finance has always been a big pioneer in using technology. When computers came out, financial companies were some of the earliest companies who applied technology or computers to automate their activities, make them faster, more efficient. So, for example, here is an example of a large bank. Its total revenue this year was $96 billion, of which the profit was about $24 billion. About 10% of the turnover was devoted to spent on technology. So financial institutions like banks, insurance companies, trading activities, stock markets and all, they all have been investing heavily and deploying technology very heavily. So as we say, what we call as FinTech, the roots go back quite some time back. And what is the kind of technology they have deployed? They have deployed in the form of automatic teller machines, 24-hour banking. You can go and draw cash or put cash back anytime. Core banking systems. Earlier we used to have banks and branches. Our account used to be at a branch. To do any banking, we had to go to that particular branch only. Now thanks to core banking, we are liberated from that. We can work on our accounts, we can transfer money, we can add money, we can withdraw money. We can open a new account sitting anywhere. We don't have to go to one particular bank. Signature recognition. And now earlier signatures used to be manually recognized, manually reconciled. Now there are systems to do it automatically. As we sign, they can reconcile and make sure that it's our signature. Then the magnetic ink character recognition, which was one of the earliest technologies which automated processing of checks. So many paper-based checks used to be written. Processing them manually used to be a big headache. MICR automated that. Then we have technologies for fraud detection. Some of the viewers may remember that if you are doing a set of transactions in your credit card, and if you do one big transaction which is out of order, normally you use your credit card for transactions for 500 rupees, 1000 rupees, and one day you buy a big item like a refrigerator costing 25,000 rupees, you will immediately get a call from your bank asking, is it your transaction? Are you the person? That is due to a technology called fraud detection. It looks at patterns of spending. If anything looks odd, it suspects that there might be a fraud going on and detects that. Then we have mobile banking. We can do banking from our mobile phones. Then there are program trading. We don't need brokers to do trading. There are programs which automatically look at the prices of a stock and decide whether to buy that stock or sell that stock. We get online quotes and online trading. So technology has been heavily deployed in the financial world in the various forms. Hence, the question rises, how is FinTech different? Let me give you two examples which shows how FinTech is different. One is Paytm and another is, if you recognize the symbol, it is Bitcoin. Let me briefly come back. As you can see, both Paytm and Bitcoin, these are fairly new phenomena, new products. Both don't exist as something that we can see. They are both related to finance. Paytm, as we know, we use it for making payments. Even small payments, we can automate them. We can use our mobile, use technology to make automatic payments to various sources, and we don't see what Paytm is. It's just something which lies in our smartphone. And we can use Paytm to transfer money. In a restaurant, if 8 of us go, one person pays the bill, we divide it amongst 8 of us, and the rest 7 of us can transfer money automatically to the person who has paid the bill. Paytm, we all use it so regularly, so often these days, but we don't see that as a product. It's a technology which is working in the domain of finance. Likewise, Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as we see a little later, is what is called a cryptocurrency. Like normal currency, rupees, dollars, we see currency notes, we see currency coins. That's how we know there is a currency. Bitcoin doesn't exist in any physical form. It exists as a set of numbers manipulated by technology. And still everybody accepts that as a currency. So this is how FinTech is different. The products it is bringing to the market are driven by technology, affect finance very profoundly. These are financial products, but they're different in the way we have looked at these products in the past. When we say ATM, we can actually see the ATM there. Or when we say MICR, we see the ink coding on the back. These products exist only as technology constructs. We use them, we experience them, but there is no one single thing called one technology which we can get our hands around. So let me go back to my slides. So in that sense, these are entirely two different products which have exist solely today because of FinTech. FinTech, the abbreviation for financial technology, is a broad category. It's not one product, it's a broad category that refers to the innovative use of technology in the design and delivery of financial services and products. We could say Paytm is a financial service, whereas Bitcoin is a financial product. Both are delivered to us by leveraging technology. And delivery of products and services solely driven by technology. Without deploying technology, neither of these products would be available or accessible to us. So since the focus is so heavily on technologies involved, let's take a look at some of the technologies involved. The very first technology is called a blockchain. This pretty much you could say this is the bedrock of all financial technology today. It's called a blockchain plus an associated construct on top of it called smart contracts. Blockchain is a huge topic by itself. I myself have delivered a course series of 10 lectures on blockchain. It's available on Swayam. Those interested may go and take a look at that. For the purposes of this lecture, I'll briefly explain what it is. Blockchain is a ledger. It's an open ledger. It is tamper proof and forward updating. We all know most of us who are in the field of business, whether you are a student studying BPA, MBA, commerce, what have you, you know what a ledger is. A ledger is a register of transactions. When I buy an item as in an organization, the seller gets credited for that amount. The buying account, the account gets debited. So there are two entries for every transactions when we maintain our ledger. It's a record of all transactions. At the end of the month or end of any period, if you want to sum them up, we want to develop our profit and loss statement or our trial balance or balance sheet, we go back to the ledger to sum up the transaction. It's a record of all transactions. Blockchain also is a ledger like that. It's a computer-based ledger. It's also what is called a distributed ledger. Many people have a copy of it, not just one, and it is tamper-proof. Accounting rules say that once a transaction has been recorded, we cannot go back. Most countries' accounting rules say we cannot go back and change a transaction. Suppose we have paid a wrong amount for a sale. We cannot go erase that and change it. Most accounting rules will ask us to actually make a counter entry to make sure that the additional amount is being reconciled later. If we have paid more amount, it is taken back from whoever to whom we have paid the amount, so that we have a record of both transactions. We know that we made a wrong entry or wrong payment, then we went and corrected that. But in the case of physical ledger, we can actually go and change and nobody may be able to notice that. This becomes very important when somebody does it with a bad intent to commit fraud. They can always go back and change the past transaction and erase all trace of what has happened. Blockchain does not let us do that. We can only keep adding entries to blockchain, and if we cannot go back and change the way technology has been designed, it's simply impossible to go back and change the transaction which has been done in the past. So it is a tamper evident. I won't say tamper proof, tamper evident. If somebody tries to do that, it will be obvious somebody has tried to do a change and possibly commit fraud. So it's a computer ledger available at multiple sources, and it is tamper proof evident, and we can only update in a forward manner. We can only make forward entries, and finally, in most cases, it is an open ledger. There are types of blockchains depending on their ownership and who runs them and who controls them and who updates them. The most common variety is what is called an open blockchain, open and public blockchain. If I run for example, Bitcoin, the example I gave, is a public open blockchain. So at any point, all of us can download and see what are the transactions happening in the Bitcoin world. So if I want to verify any transaction in the world of Bitcoin, I can go back and see if the transaction actually happened. And associated with blockchains, there is an additional technology called a smart contract that enforces a transaction between two parties. So on a blockchain, remember, blockchain does not exist in a physical form. There is no book of ledgers. It exists as a computer file distributed among many people. And if I sign a contract with somebody selling pizza and pay them Bitcoin, I'm paying them in a currency which doesn't exist physically. I'm paying them in a Bitcoin, and when I do the transaction, a bit of the Bitcoin goes from my account to the pizza seller's account. How do we make sure that once I give the money, the pizza seller actually delivers the pizza? So that conditionality, that condition can be enforced by something called a smart contract. As I said, these are fairly detailed concepts. I can just give a brief taste of what they are. So I can set up a smart contract in such a way that only when I sign that receipt, when somebody delivers the pizza, they may take a receipt from me in the way courier companies do. They may take my signature. Only when my signature registers will that corresponding amount of Bitcoin will be deducted from my account and delivered to the account of the pizza seller. So contracts can be enforced conditionally using a piece of technology which runs on top of blockchain called smart contracts. So in short, Bitcoins are verifiable open ledgers which are tamper evident, can only be updated in a forward manner. generally distributed and open to everyone. And smart contracts are written on top of Bitcoin contracts to enforce the conditions of the contract. The second big technology is artificial intelligence and machine learning. Artificial intelligence refers to reasoning like human beings do and take actions. Like for example, I as a stock trader would like to buy a stock when its value is below what I think is market value and sell it when it is above the market value. So I develop a set of rules. I develop some calculations, I do various ratio analysis, and I look at the volume of transactions and go ahead and trade based on that. This process can be captured so that computers can do the same process. Computers collect data, they can be taught, rules can be built into computers wherein they will look at these things. They will look at ratios, they will look at number of transactions, they will look at intrinsic value, book value, various measures, and based on whether the stock is undervalued or overvalued, automatically buy or sell. So this mimicking human mind, technology working like the human mind does, is generally what we call as artificial intelligence, and that is making huge difference. Many times stock prices vary so fast that we humans cannot catch up with that number of transactions. But tools in AI built into computers can see the transaction and within a fraction of a second execute a transaction, which may mean a difference between a big gain of a few $1 million against loss of a few $1 million. That's not the only example. Artificial intelligence is used in pretty much any area, including diagnosing diseases, diagnosing conditions of an engine. For example, if a spark plug in a car engine is about to blow, AI can sense it and give a replacement for that or send a warning to that. So in many areas, artificial intelligence is being deployed. One of those areas is in FinTech, like for example, like the example I gave of trading automatically, or fraud detection is one area which has been where artificial intelligence is very strongly applied, where the system looks at all the transaction a person does and tries to guess whether a fraud is being committed or not. And artificial and machine learning is in addition to that. Artificial intelligence required us to put in the rules. If the market price is 100, stock price comes down to 90. If the difference is more than 10, buy. Machine learning can learn the rule by itself. You feed a number of transactions to the machine and it can form its own rules, like playing chess. If we make the machine play 1 million times the same game of chess using very basic rules, the machine will learn the basic rules of chess. So looking at patterns, learning the rules, and applying the rules together are called artificial intelligence and machine learning. Again, this is one more technology which is profoundly influencing the direction that FinTech is taking. The third is big data and analytics. With so many computers capturing so much data, it's humanly impossible to look at the example I gave for fraud detection. So many customers are doing so many transactions, it is simply impossible for human beings to look at the transaction of each and every person and try to detect whether a fraud is being committed or not. We need to look at patterns of so many people, match it with the past, match it with the present, and if something is out of order, highlight that because a fraud might be happening. Such a thing is made possible using AI and machine learning with the data supplied by this another technology called big data and analytics. It helps all the systems to slice and dice vast quantities of data, see patterns and make sense out of it. Once we make sense out of it, then rules may kick in and actions can be taken. That handling that amount of data, big amount of data in an efficient way to help see patterns and draw patterns is driven by a technology called big data and analytics. Then there is one more technology called cloud technologies, which has empowered even small companies and individuals to take the capability of vast computing resources. Historically, computers was only available to big companies. Big computers were available to big companies, could invest in them. Now, even smaller companies can get the power of very large computers using cloud technologies. In this lecture series, there is a lecture on cloud technologies also. Those interested may refer to that. And next is an area called cryptography. Cryptography is pretty much, when you say there is so much involved, so much of technology is involved, so much of information is involved, and all being dealt with without any human input, you may wonder what happens to all that information. What if somebody steals that information? What if somebody corrupts that information? So we need to implement security. We need to implement security features so that the information is not captured, corrupted, or misused. One key tool which helps us do that is called cryptography. Again, it's a field by itself, but it's suffice to say, bulk of what fintech is able to do today in a safe manner. For example, we don't mind giving our credit card number to e-commerce vendor online. We don't see who the vendor is. We don't know where they are. All we see is a web page in front of us, and it says enter your credit card number here. With what guarantee we can enter our credit card number that only the e-commerce vendor uses it and nobody else steals it? Cryptography is what has made it happen. We can, with reasonable safety, enter our details like our name, our date of birth, our address, our phone number, our Aadhaar number, and our credit card number with an assurance that it's only being used by the people who need to have access to that, whom we trust. And the technology which makes that possible is cryptography. It comes in other fields too, like cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin. The very word cryptocurrency comes because Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency is based on cryptography. We do cryptography to encode something. So when I tell somebody that I own a Bitcoin, cryptography helps me prove to that person and nobody else that I do actually own that Bitcoin, and nobody else can come and steal that currency from me or change the information I have without my authorization. Again, one very advanced and deep technology which is advancing all the time, but it's one of the key foundational technologies of fintech. Then we have another technology called process automation. The moment somebody is, for example, with insurance companies, the moment we put a claim, we notice that next year our premium may go up because we have put in it violates the pattern and action is taken, that our premium goes up. Or we have not made a claim for 5 years, next year our premium may come down. Again, given the numbers, it's impossible for humans to look at all the insurance policies that exist within an organization, which could be in millions, and take these decisions. Process automation does that automatically. So it looks at the pattern. If I have put no claim in the past 6 years, reduce premium by so much. If I have put one, increase premium by X amount. Likewise with trading. Once the price of a stock, we have entered the value of a stock, put various rules and information. Once the price of a stock goes above certain market value, which we think is oversold, overrated rather, and then the process automation can ensure that before we can do anything, before the market reacts, the stock is sold automatically. Our stock is bought automatically based on preset rules. These are various tools which automate the processes human beings used to do. Earlier, brokers used to sit in front of the terminal and take a decision whether to buy a stock or sell a stock. Now it can be done automatically by computers using this technology called process automation. Then we have image and voice processing, including natural language processing. Many times you may ask a question to Google, for example. Google understands your language and tries to answer your question. I have a young son who is very fond of astronomy. He goes to Google and asks a question, which is the biggest star. Google understands the question by voice, goes through various sources of information, pulls the right source and provides with the voice answer or a text answer. Likewise for images. Now we have image search also in various tools like Google. So these technologies which help recognize natural language and voice based on voice and provide answers back, it's again which is very profoundly affecting fintech, because now we don't need to be computer savvy to use a computer. Even a child can ask questions to a computer and get answers. So it has made the availability of these technologies much more broad based. Many more people can use technology because of image and voice processing. Then there is something called algorithm driven processes. This goes on normally with process automation. I have a set of rules. If all the rules fire, to the action. I have defined 5 ratios to decide whether a stock is to be sold or bought. If all the 5 rules say sell, stock gets sold. If all the 5 rules applied say buy, the stock gets bought. Such processes are driven by a set of rules, set of steps. So they are normally called algorithm driven processes. Then we have technologies called virtual reality and augmented virtual reality. These also are affecting in different ways, predominantly especially in training. In training, we are able to train our people to use these technologies using virtual reality. You don't need to be in the stock market to understand how stocks are bought and sold. In other fields, they are used too, like in aircraft simulators. Before pilots take to the air, they are actually taught how to fly a plane in a simulator, in a toy-like thing, where they're actually playing around with that and learn the basics. Such things are also done using virtual reality and augmented virtual reality. There are so many other technologies coming up all the way, each one changing every aspect. For example, cryptography. New and new policies, new and new ways of doing cryptography are coming up all the time. It's simply impossible to keep up with them, but it's good to know some of the basic technologies which are involved in FinTech. And let me just get back on that. Next, we'll take a look at some of the key characteristics. Let me switch back to myself. So as we have seen, technology is evolving so fast and every aspect of that is affecting the financial industry profoundly and at the same time bringing a lot of benefits. So something like that which is changing the way we look at things, changing the way we think of things, changing the way we do things. Typically such the technologies are called disruptive technologies. So as you can guess, FinTech is causing a lot of disruption into the field of finance driven by technology, and it has resulted in certain different ways of doing things, certain new characteristics which have come up, certain new products that have come through. So let's take a look at some of those key characteristics which help us identify what is FinTech. Let me go back to my desktop. So let's take a look at some of the key characteristics of FinTech. One, as I mentioned, it is disruptive. It's a disruptive technology or a set of technologies. Traditionally, we did business in one way. We had to place an order with a broker over the phone many times. The broker looked at the numbers, took our order, placed the order, executed the order. If we say buy 100 shares of Hindustan Liver, we have to call the broker. The broker will buy those shares on our behalf and credit it to our account. And likewise the other way, when we say sell, they will sell and credit the money to our account. The way that is done has been changed completely now. Now I don't even have to give instructions. I may just say buy the share when it is so much below market value and sell it when it's 10% above market value. Now this program trading, algorithmic trading and process automation will make sure that I don't even need a broker also. It monitors the price of the stock, does the calculations. The moment it comes down 10% below market value, buys it. And likewise, when it goes 10% above market value, sells it. So it has completely disrupted the way we do things. So FinTech is a collection of such disruptive technologies. They are disrupting the field the way we know it in the way we have not completely grasped. But the second key aspect of FinTech, new technologies bring new rules. For example, when we were walking or when we had carts or chariots, we had no speed limits. When we got cars which could travel much faster than we could imagine, then we came up with new rules saying that this is the speed you can drive at. So new technologies typically don't have rules, they have rules made later to manage the technology. However, in the case of FinTech, the technology is new, the difference between a cart and a car. But the field has existed, the field of FinTech has existed with a very comprehensive regulatory framework. What are the ways you can do banking? What are the ways you can do lending? What are the do's and don'ts of doing insurance? What are the ways of buying and selling stocks? Insurance companies, you might have heard their ads saying that insurance companies are not to be solicited. They come under Solicitation Act. So there is always a regulatory framework already existing So the technology which comes into play, the new technologies we are developing, still have to work within the existing regulatory framework. They are disrupting the business, but many times they have to work with the existing regulatory framework. In this way, fintech is different from other types of technologies, which may be so different that new regulatory framework may evolve. But in case of fintech, most of the time, fintech has to work within regulatory framework. And fintech is aimed at understanding the customer experience. Look at fraud detection. Now, if I don't have to worry whether my card is going to be misused, because there is somebody observing my transactions, and if a fraud is likely to happen, it's likely to warn me. So it enhances my experience. I don't have to worry that if I give my credit card to an e-commerce company without seeing who the merchant is, I don't have to worry that it's going to be abused on a large scale. It may happen in case of an accident or a glitch, but in normal transactions, my experience is enhanced because I can safely use without worrying about somebody misusing it. I can safely buy a product having seen the experience of other users. If I go to e-commerce company, when I buy a product, it will say these are what customers say about this product. These are the other products which they are buying. So all these technologies together understand what I am trying to do, how I do business, and try to enhance it. So that's another key aspect of fintech. They try to understand and enhance the customer experience. Security, and next, security of information is all important. If I have no assurance that my credit card will not be misused, I will not use it. If there is no assurance that I can't do banking online safely, I will not do online banking. So fintech exists by ensuring the security of information. And fintech also has to handle real life complexities. For example, take a bank. I apply for a loan to a bank. First, a manager scrutinizes that. And if the loan is above a certain limit, the manager signs and sends for approval to his general manager. So that's the way loan process typically happens. So one day, the general manager doesn't turn up. So how will my manager approve that loan? So this is a real life complexity. I may need the loan urgently. The manager would like to give you the loan urgently that day, but his general manager is not there. So fintech gives a way for the manager to assume the role of a general manager, safely approve the loan, come back and allocate it to me, and later on reconcile that. So that at any point, somebody should be able to say, this loan was actually approved to me by the manager rather than the general manager under these conditions. So handling real life complexities is part of fintech. And fintech has to operate with other disciplines. One we have already seen, fintech has to operate with security, predominantly in the form of cryptocurrency in various ways. Fintech also has to work within the regulatory framework. If tomorrow Reserve Bank of India says that e-wallets can only have this much capacity, e-wallet like Paytm, if it can only have a total sum of 20,000 rupees, whereas till last week it was 50,000 rupees, we have to immediately change the technologies to bring down to the regulations. So fintech has to work with the regulatory authorities. Fintech has to work with the law. If a fraud happened, somebody has stolen certain money from a set of bank accounts, fintech has to work with the police and investigative agencies to find out who did that and how do we set right that issue. So fintech has to work with fields like mathematics, legal enforcement, regulatory authorities, and real life. And fintech is highly amenable to disintermediation. That means fintech is very good at removing all the middlemen. They take the example of buying stocks, as I mentioned. Now we don't need a broker anymore to buy and sell our shares. Earlier, there was an intermediary. For me to buy a share or sell a share, I needed a middleman, a broker, an intermediary. Fintech can disintermediate all that. So it has done a lot of disintermediation, brought efficiencies and brought the cost down. But there are certain opposition also to remove intermediaries fully. So there may be legal issues in completely disintermediating. Same thing we see with e-commerce. Another big user of fintech. E-commerce can deliver directly from seller to the buyer, from the manufacturer to the buyer. but many countries have put legal bounds saying that e-commerce companies cannot put their own stocking. They cannot maintain their own stocks. They have to work like a marketplace. So fintech can disintermediate very heavily, but oftentimes there are legal issues in why they can do or cannot do. And finally, another key characteristic of fintech, it's constantly coming up with new and new products. One example I gave is cryptocurrencies. There are new ways of making payment, Paytm. You don't need to give cash. You don't need to write a check. You don't even need to do online banking or credit cards. Use Paytm to transfer money. It has come up with new payment rails. So these are some of the key characteristics of fintech. And this is a pictorial representation of the total landscape of fintech. The three major key areas of finance are banking, securities, and lending, credit cards, personal lending. Fintech is affecting all three very significantly. Through various phenomena, we see it's come up with new ways of financing a product, crowd financing. We will see a new way of lending called person-to-person lending. Fintech is profoundly affecting international remittances. One big activity of banking was to transfer money between nations. I do some transaction for somebody in US. I develop a program and they pay me in dollars. So banks were the intermediaries in which they deposit money in their dollars, and the banks here will take that dollar, convert it into rupees and deliver and deposit it to my accounts. Fintech has significantly affected that process, that business itself. It has affected payments, the example of Paytm. It has come up with new products called cryptocurrencies. Instead of paying you in rupees or dollars, I can pay you now in bitcoins. It has enabled us with what are called card-linked offers. I buy X amount of goods, I get a free ticket for movies. I get certain cash back. Fintech has enabled credit card industry by coming up with card-linked offers. Lot of research is going on in payment rails, in cryptography especially, and new cryptocurrencies. Fintech is coming up with investment for institutions. We must have heard of something called institutional banking. New products have come which are automating those processes. Now, they are also affecting personal investment. My broker has a site where an automatic robot analyzes my share patterns, my holding patterns, and gives me advice on how I should invest. I should invest. Earlier, there used to be an investment advisor who would do this activity for me. Now, there is a robot, a fintech robot sitting which analyzes my portfolio and tells me how to invest. So, and then is private financial management. This is a general landscape. So, all aspects of finance are affected by fintech today. And so, let me take a small break here, come back to myself. With every aspect of finance being affected so profoundly, it's only natural that every stakeholder, everybody involved in financial industry is seriously looking at this technology, studying that, seeing how best we can use it, and from the side of regulatory part, they're looking at how best can we regulate so that, like finance, we minimize the chance of fraud, we protect the investor, we protect the small investor. So what is a framework we can develop to leverage this technology? This technology is capable of doing so many things. It's like nuclear fission. Nuclear fission left uncontrolled will result in a bomb, but when we harness it properly, regulate it properly, it will result in cheap electricity. Like that, a lot of organizations are looking and studying this phenomenon and trying to make sense. What is this? What is going on? How do we use that? How do we regulate that? One big organization which has looked at that is the World Economic Forum. The same organization which does the Davos meeting every year, it has looked at fintech and come up with a sort of a framework to study that. So we look at that shortly. So WEF is one of those organizations which have studied fintechs in quite some depth, and they have come up with a framework to make sense of fintech. So they have identified 6 areas, functions of financial services. They have divided financial services into 6 areas. Even in an environment of rapid change to the design, delivery, and providers of financial services, the core needs these services fulfill remain the same. That is, technology is new, the way we are doing things is new, but the things we have done have predominantly remained the same. We have identified 6 core functions that comprise the financial services. They include payments, Market provisioning, creating new customers, creating new users, protecting their accounts and closing them. That's called market provisioning. Investment management, which is self-explanatory. Insurance, deposits and lending, and raising capital, providing loans and things like that. So WEF has identified the field of finance into 6 areas: payments, market positioning, investment management, insurance, deposits and lending, and capital raising. And they have identified 11 clusters of innovation, 11 areas where innovation is happening, which is affecting each of these 6 functions. So in the next graphic, let's take a look at those. For example, one of the functions is payments. New payment rails, Paytm and other such e-wallets being one example, Google Pay and Airtel Pay, Phone Pay, all those things, they are typically what are called payment rails. Lot of research, new and new wallets are coming up. Wallets are coming up for international payments. They are affecting this cluster of innovation happening in payment rails is affecting the function of payments. And other areas cashless world. Thanks to various e-wallets like this, we rarely need to carry cash. Even when we buy some snacks on the roadside, the vendor might be willing to accept one of these payment cards, Google Pay or Paytm. So it's reducing our world into a cashless world. Our payments now are cashless. We don't need to carry cash fully. There is a lot of work happening on making our processes faster, making our computer faster. So our computers are getting smarter and faster, and new market platforms like e-commerce platforms are coming up, core banking platforms are coming up. They're affecting this area of creating new users, managing new users, market provisioning. Process externalization and empowered investors are 2 more areas where research is happening that's affecting investment management. There's a new way of securing money, securing capital called crowdfunding. If time permitting, we'll take a look at that, how it is happening today. That is affecting this field of capital raising very profoundly. Then there is something called alternative lending. Earlier, banks used to lend, financial institutions used to lend. We all deposit our money, they collect our deposits, lend it to customers. Now there is these new platforms that are enabling person-to-person lending. Not big amounts. A friend of mine or somebody I don't know may want 10,000 rupees and willing to pay 500 rupees as interest for 3 months. Right now, I have no way except to lend that money based on a promissory note or something like that. But new platforms are emerging where I can lend a small amount like 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees to somebody anywhere in the world with a reasonable assurance that that person will pay back. I don't need no other assurance. With no collateral, I can lend because the payment system will take care. That's affecting deposits and lending significantly. This is called P2P banking. Then there are various things like insurance disaggregation and connected insurance. That is, if I have auto insurance, it may affect my life insurance one way or the other. If I'm driving a lot, which may mean that my life insurance also has to go up because I'm exposing myself to greater risk. So research and development in insurance aggregation, connected insurance are affecting the field of insurance profoundly. So WF has developed this framework where there are 6 functions and how fintech is affecting each of those 6 functions. And this is a small example of how a credit card can be replaced with our own technology, our own credit card. Today, credit card is controlled by 3 or 4 companies like Visa and MasterCard, and they levy heavy charges. But with this new technology of fintech, especially blockchain, 2 banks may come to an agreement, something like Dhanlakshmi Bank in India and Dime Bank in the US. We don't need to involve the intermediaries. Remember, one of the key characteristics of fintech is removal of intermediaries. So this current mechanism of my bank dealing with the merchant bank, dealing with the credit card company, dealing with the customer's bank, with so many intermediaries, everybody taking their part of the commission, enabling a credit card transaction. If I do use my credit card, all these parties are involved today, both in authorization and settlement. With fintech, we can put a blockchain which will enable a credit card to happen directly between my bank and another bank. They can issue their own credit card. They don't have to go through the intermediaries at all. My bank, I do my transaction with my bank. it directly settles with other bank, two banks. I need no other parties which can significantly reduce the costs. So this is one disruption. Now, as you see in the intermediaries like the credit card companies are profoundly affected now. Because of this technology called blockchain, my bank, Dhanalakshmi Bank and Dime Bank in the US, they no longer need all these intermediaries. They can talk directly to the blockchain and settle the transactions, thus disintermediating this entire process and reducing the cost. Another example of blockchain, I mentioned earlier this thing called crowdfunding. Another way of lending, one way of doing that is called crowdfunding. So I have taken the very popular example which will rhyme with all of us, financing a movie. Today movies get financed by producers investing their money, borrowing from the market through various lenders, and only now institutional lending is only now coming into the field of financing a movie. Still the field is quite opaque. We don't know how they get financed, what interest rates and things like that. An alternative way is what is called crowdfunding a movie. Number of people interested invest small amounts and fund a movie. Recently it did happen personally for me to a movie which was released, movie was produced by people whom I know. Bunch of us from a given school, 2 of our alumni produced a movie. All of us invested, all bunch of alumni joined together and invested small amounts, no big amounts, small amounts to totally fund the movie, and the movie was produced. How could we do that? Because we all knew each other, we could trust each other. So we knew that if we invested X amount in a movie, the director, who was one of our alumni, would spend the money only on that particular movie. If we don't know the producer, if we don't know the director, with what guarantee can crowd, people who don't know them, invest in that movie with the assurance that if we invest 1 crore together, some 10,000 people together invest 1 crore, what's the assurance that that amount is going to be spent solely on that movie and not being diverted for any other purposes? So here is a small example how crowd can fund a movie with reasonable assurance that it is being spent on the right causes for which it was meant. A blockchain can help doing that. For one thing, the way it happens typically, the funders, all of us who are interested in funding a movie, we have not met each other, we have not met the producer, we have not met the director, all of us are willing to put 5,000 rupees. If there are 1,000 of us, we are investing 50,000, there are 2,000 of us, we can raise up to 1 crore by investing 5,000 rupees each. So funders and the producers agree upon the quantum of funding and milestones and the fund release schedule offline. We all write emails to each other and say, all of us, 2,000 of us will invest 5,000 rupees in this movie, coming up to a total of 1 crore, of which 10 lakhs would be released to the producer and the director once the hero and heroine are signed. 20 lakhs will be released when the first set of production is done. 10 more lakhs is to be released when 2 of the songs are shot, maybe in Bangkok or somewhere. So we come up to basic terms that so much amount is going to be invested and it's going to be released on meeting these targets. Then we set up a blockchain. Remember, blockchain is an open ledger. Whenever money comes in, it gets recorded in the blockchain. Whenever money gets released to the producer and director, it gets recorded in the blockchain. Both we, producer and the director, can always go and see how much money has been released and how much money has been collected. So we set up a blockchain. We place our funds in a bank account called an escrow account, which will only release money to the producer and director based on certain conditions being set up. So for each of the milestones, remember, 10 lakhs to be released on the signing up of the hero and heroine, 20 lakhs to be released on finishing the first schedule of production, 10 more lakhs when 2 more songs are shot. So we have a schedule. So we set up what is called a smart contract. In blockchain, we set up a smart contract saying that the director comes back and writes and gives evidence that I have signed up the hero and heroine. Maybe they sign or send their document or whatever. 10 lakhs gets, the smart contract ensures that 10 lakh gets released from the escrow account to the producer's account. So they come back and next they come back and say, we have shot first schedule. We have some films to show. We put a clip, we put a trailer. Based on that, the smart contract releases 20 lakhs to the producer directors. There's a concept called lining. To do these milestones, producers do what is called a mining, which is a concept by itself in blockchain. We'll not do that right now. Let's assume that some way the producers can come back and prove that they have met the milestone. Then third parties like the banks and all verify, yes, the smart contract has fired. They have actually met the terms of the condition, and smart contract fires and transfers the funds. So at any point, without any of the funders having met either the director or the producer, a bunch of people, 2,000 people, can fund a movie, make sure that the money reaches the producer and director only when they do certain activities. Thus, we are sure that at the end of this process, the movie is produced with all our public investment. And at any point, we can always go back and see how much was collected and how much has been sent. It's a very simple example. It requires a little more detail, which we will do it in a later lecture. But this is one way in which FinTech, blockchain, remember, blockchain is an example of FinTech. It's affecting something like movie making also. It's profoundly changing how movies are being funded today. And there are examples of movies which are being crowdfunded. There was a movie in Canada about 2 years back called Lucia. That was an example of a movie which was completely crowdfunded, funded by people who had no connection with each other. So this is one more example how FinTech is disrupting business, as we know. Not just financial business, movie making business too. And thus, we have seen, let me go back to myself. So thus we have seen just a sample of the kind of changes and disruption that FinTech is causing to this whole field of finance. It's not just affecting finance, it's affecting our consumer experience. It's affecting what we thought was unrelated field like movie making. The financial part of it, but still financing a movie is the most critical aspect of making a movie, and even that area is being so profoundly affected by FinTech. So let's take a look at some of the benefits. These are some of the various effects that FinTech is causing, and we briefly look at the technologies which are causing these changes. Let's take a brief look at some of the benefits, and you could say some of the drawbacks too, but benefits outweigh drawbacks a lot. So let's take a brief look at those. The first thing, FinTech has reduced or eliminated friction in the financial process. Friction means those things which delay a transaction. Let me go back to that example of transmitting money from US to me. I have delivered a product to a buyer in the US. That buyer has deposited say $100 in his bank to be transmitted to me. That typically today it may take up to a week or more for that $100 to reach me. For $100 it is not much, but if it was $1 million, a week can actually cost me money in terms of borrowed money or interest. So why does it happen? Because they have to go and authorize, they have to make the transfer, their bank has to approve the transfer and authorize the international intermediary who will take the money from a US bank and deposit it into an Indian bank here, which might be RBI or some clearing bank. And the clearing bank has to transmit that money, convert it into rupees and transmit it to my bank, and my bank has to deposit my money to my account. This is a very simplified process. There may be even more steps than these. At every step, there could be delay. For example, the customer may deposit the money on a Friday, and in that country, banks work only 5 days a week, whereas in India, they may work 6 days a week. So money does not get transmitted from that bank to the clearing house or the international bank till Monday. There's a delay of 2 days already. And if it so happens that Monday is a holiday in our country, the recipient's country, that bank may not be able to bank holiday. That international bank may not be able to transfer money to the Indian clearing bank on Monday. It can only do it on Tuesday. And that bank may deposit that money to my bank on a Wednesday, and my bank deposits to my account only on a Thursday. So it may take up to a week. So financial technologies, various technologies, each step which is delaying the process by a day or more is what is referred to as friction. FinTech can automate the process and reduce the friction so significantly that even internationally today, almost instantaneous transfer of money is theoretically possible. It may not be in existence fully because of various reasons, but by removing the intermediaries, FinTech makes it possible to almost do that process instantaneously, which was taking much longer. And likewise, it is enhancing the customer experience too. I get my money immediately. Instead of waiting for a week, I as a customer of my bank, I am realizing my money almost instantaneously. And if there's a delay, I get an SMS message, so I can make alternate arrangements. Or if there's a mistake somewhere, I get a message again. So it has the FinTech has enhanced my customer experience. It has done it in various types of customers elsewhere too. Other benefit is automating the manual processes. As I mentioned, today number of transactions is so high. Businesses are so many. We ourselves, if you think about it, in a week, you yourself might be making about 20 payments on your e-wallet, like Google Pay or Paytm or whatever. So it's impossible for humans to handle so many transactions. So FinTech has made it possible by automating all these manual processes. We don't need the enormous amount of manpower and the delay it causes to handle all these processes. Banks and various financial institutions are able to give us these instantaneous services with the same number or less number of people, because these processes are being manually automated using FinTech. And next step, since it has eliminated so many intermediaries, go back to the example of international money transfer or introducing your own credit card, two banks introducing their own credit card. By removing all the middlemen, by reducing the delay, the costs are being reduced. The cost of transaction also is coming down. Especially in the case of international transactions, there used to be a very hefty charge called wire transfer charges and things like that. Those used to be something like $30 to $40 per transaction. Now it has come down to $2, $3 and things like that. Next, they can personalize offerings like fraud detection. If somebody regularly charges transactions of 10,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees on their credit card, if they charge 18,000 rupees, there may not be a warning to them. It's part of their pattern. Whereas I charge 200 rupees, 300 rupees, 500 rupees on my credit card. If I pass a transaction for 18,000 rupees, immediately there will be a warning to me that it might be potentially a fraud system. So the messages I get and the messages that another person gets can be different by personalizing. Due to FinTech, we can look at different ways of different people do transactions. The other person does routinely transactions of 15,000, 20,000 rupees. I do only 200, 300 rupees. So the messages that both of us get can be personalized. Messages that person gets when he gets and the message I get when I get are completely different based on person to person basis. Each person can get different messages. Such a thing again is possible only due to FinTech. Then something called anytime, anywhere. We all have seen that. We can transfer money to a friend's account through a Go e-wallet any time of the day. We may finish our dinner at 11 in the night. 11:30 we can transfer the money to their account and anywhere. We finish our dinner, get into our car in a taxi. While going home we can transfer money. So we can do financial transactions. We are not limited to going to a bank. We are not limited to going to a branch only during their working hours. We can do banking anytime, anywhere. And FinTech is resulting in entirely new products. Cryptocurrency is only one of the examples where this whole area of currency where we can use it for transactions without anybody certifying like that, like a reserve bank, has come up completely due to FinTech. This entire new concept of crowdfunding. To finance something, to fund something, I don't have to go to a bank and have one manager decide upon it. I can get a number of people invest a small amount of money, reducing their risk, and yet I get my funding done. These concepts have been possible only because of FinTech, and some of these technologies have such profound effect that potential is so high and the benefits are so high that regulatory organizations everywhere are trying to leverage that. They're trying to see how best we can use this without allowing them to be misused. In this connection, our own Reserve Bank of India is actively involved in monitoring cryptocurrencies, monitoring these e-wallets, various payment rails, and RBI has recognized the potential of blockchain. So here is a document that RBI has published saying that what are the areas in which we can leverage, we can use blockchains. Let's take one small look. Loan. How do we give loans? RBI has identified person-to-person lending. Remember, I gave an example. Now it's not necessary for only financial institutions to do lending. We can also do lending to other people whom we don't know. Right now we give loans to people whom we know on a personal basis. But person to person lending is possible by using blockchains, using small amounts. RBI has identified this as one area where we can use blockchain. It also identified corporate and retail loans and mortgages. Mortgages can be done completely. We can always see how much we have to pay, what is our EMI, how much we have paid using a blockchain. It has identified about 7 areas. There are many more than that. Just to give an example, how even regulatory bodies like RBI are seriously looking at fintech, an aspect of fintech, and see how best we can leverage this exciting new technology. So that essentially was the basic idea of introducing this topic today. This field is still in its development. It's still in its infancy, as we say. It's making such changes and it's going to touch each one of us. Whether we want to have participants in the financial industry or whether we want to be, new players can come into the market. People who are not in the finance market, people who are in the field of technology have come into this field of finance. For example, if you take Google Pay or Paytm, technology companies have come into the field of finance. So it's opened the field to new and new players. And so it's very important for those of us who are students of business, whether you might be doing a BBA or an MBA or a practitioner, it's important for us to get an idea of this new phenomenon which has had such a profound effect on the way we do business, not just finance. Remember the example of crowdfunding a movie? Even if you don't understand the exact steps that I explained in the process, we still need to understand that here is this new technology, here is this new phenomenon which can allow us to do new things. It is affecting the way we do things, which can allow us to do new things in a better way, in a more efficient way, in a more profitable way. I hope you all enjoyed today's lecture. And this field is still exciting. So as always, I would encourage you to go. There is a lot of literature out in the field. Go do your own research, do your own reading, and keep update. This field is changing on a daily basis. So you always need to be on top of things, constantly be getting this information to be up to date on this field. Thank you.